Great American rugby. Rugby is life and life is great. How's everybody doing? My name is Lance, and today I have a very special live. This live is once again me as a referee. Nobody likes Lance as a referee except for Lance. But in order for me to get better so that everyone else can like me as a referee, we got to start somewhere. And I'm going to get coached by, honestly, one of my favorite referees in the United States and internationally. This gentleman refereed my first game in Florida when I moved here, and I'm very excited to have him on the show, but even more so excited to see all the amazing things he's done over the last couple of years. I've got a chance to meet him, learn about his story, learn about his family. His father actually is my sensei. Shout out to Papa. I'm not gonna say the name because I had to give it away, but his dad is the one who gave me my referee certification and got me into the wide world of refereeing. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce to you the man, the myth, the legend himself, brother Cisco Lopez. How we doing today?
I'm great. I'm great. And I want to say, like, first, like, straight away, you know who loves Lance as a referee? I love Lance as a referee. So I'm in your fan club just as much, man.
I got one. I can't be too upset. I got one. First thing is I want to say, man, that in meeting you that first time in Florida, for me it'd be in Florida, for you it'd be home at that point. But it was after the pandemic, and it was the first game for South Florida RFC, and we were this young, scrappy team with no structure and it was just a wild game. And we're playing against the best team in the state of Florida at that time. So our first game ever, we're told is like, all right, you'll be playing against Miami. We're supposed to play their B side. Thanks to COVID, we end up playing against their A side because their A side game got canceled because the team that was supposed to play got COVID and pulled out. So in our first game ever as a team, we're playing against the best team in the state of Florida, right? And here goes Cisco out here. And were you supposed to referee the other game, and then you just dropped down to ours, right?
I don't remember exactly, but I think I was scheduled on it from the get-go because I think the A side game was an away game actually, or something like that. I can't remember, but
Yeah, but either way, it became this game, and after the game, funny enough, and it was our first time meeting. After the game, I didn't know anything about you. I didn't know anything, but you carried the game so well. Like so many things happened in the game, and maybe I have an eye for good refereeing at the time. Who knows? Maybe I'm tripping, but I knew like you did a really good job that game in the circumstances with everything that was happening. And since then. Well, first of all, we end up having a conversation after that game for like an hour and a half in the parking lot.
yeah, just the parking lot just posted up.
And since then, man, you've done some amazing things from MLR to international sevens, and you've expanded so much. First of all, man, how's it been over the last couple of years to really grow into your refereeing and kind of become what you are now?
Yeah, no, I think it's been really crazy because it's something that, I started refereeing really, really young, like 17, 18 years old. And, from early on, I knew I wasn't really going to be able to play at a high level. And I kind of sussed out that like I could probably referee at a higher level than I could play. So it was always a dream, really, like it sounds so nerdy to say, but, I remember one time, like I was talking to my dad, we were back when I didn't have a driver's license and he's driving me to the game. He just kind of tells me like, oh, like I think you could really go, like you could almost be like probably an international referee if you, play your cards right and like put the work in and stuff. Um, and so it's just like, yeah, crazy, like dream come true to, be on the series. I think that's always been like a huge goal of mine. Like I used to spend countless weekends up at like 4 a.m. watching like the Wellington Sevens or Dubai, like whatever tournament was on, I was watching it like crazy. And I knew all the refs because at that point I was also kind of getting interested in refereeing and all their personalities and stuff. And so it's crazy now, like genuinely, um, to be there in that environment. Obviously, to be an MLR, I think like it's a really crazy moment to be involved in high performance rugby in the United States. Like there's just so many people want to see it grow, and so I think like being able to be a part of that wave is really cool. Um, but even just in general, man, like I think there's times where going back to me saying like, oh, I've met referees that like I fanboyed over heavy. Like the first time that I met Federico and Selmy at Vegas Sevens, I'm like kitty taking a photo, telling him I'm gonna send it to my dad, and then like genuinely like wild 2022 MLR season, I'm ARing for him in the final. New York Ironworkers versus Seattle in Red Bull Stadium. So like that's crazy. And then now sometimes some referees will come to me, and in my mind I'm just a guy. I grew up in Miami, like I'm from the States, like I live in Atlanta now, and it's crazy when sometimes people like just like they'll use the full name is also how I know that I'm like, wait, what? Cisco Lopez. I'm like, wait a second, and I remember like, oh, that's right. I'm like on TV and stuff like that. It's just crazy. Yeah, it's a. I've been really pinching myself about just all the opportunity to travel, to see the world. That's definitely something that I wouldn't have been able to get on from my own means and stuff. And so to do that with community, with my referee friends, with the sport that I love, is it's insane.
One thing that people don't know, I don't really talk about what motivated me to start refereeing, right? Um, During my Great American Rugby travels, I find myself actually hanging out with referees, right? In these 2-day tournaments in Rugby Town being a 3-day tournament. I can't go with the teams while they're doing their between game
Hmm.
stuff, right? Between day stuff. So either I'm with other media people by myself, or sometimes a referee will be gracious enough to invite me with the referees. And at Rugby Town, we got to actually hang out a little bit. I actually got to hang out with you guys at the bar down the street from the hotel. And
Hmm.
I realized like how communal referees are. It's like they're their own team. They have their
Yeah.
own, right? They have their own team situation going on. And that actually was one of the things that made me think like, maybe I should, try my hand at refereeing. What was it that motivated you to try refereeing? You said you started at 17 or really young. What was the thing that was like, I'm gonna do this?
To be fair with you, like I think a lot of it at first was being able to travel. Like I thought that was just like a cool opportunity. Um, like I mean, I grew up in Miami from when I was 5, and that's the only place that I ever lived for like ever. I mean, I went to FIU down there. Like Atlanta's the only other city I've ever lived in. So when I got to sort of like see what the rest of the U.S. looked like, as well as like being a part of, I think one of the first tournaments that I got to do was it's a tournament in DC called the Gonzaga Rugby Classic or something like that, I think. And there's also like a Jesuit high school tournament. And so as well, just kind of like being around high level rugby, especially people my age at that time, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I think I'm really motivated to be in, I'm really competitive and I'm motivated to be in those types of high performance spaces. And so when I could see, when I kind of got a taste of like, oh, I'm putting in work to try and do my best and I'm refereeing teams now are in competitions, and like as the years went by, like oh, the people are putting more in and like more effort and there's a lot more stakes. There's just something really motivating for me personally about like first of all like being responsible to that, like oh like people really care about how this game is going to go. They want it to go fairly. They want to feel like they have a fair crack. um and at the same time it's like I mean I even remember the first time I refereed like Life University. That was and for a long time that was the bug that like kept me coming back to, is like when I refereed D1A games, because it was just the level was so like cool to be a part of. And it was just one of those where I think it's a phrase that all of the referees will always use about like, oh, why should you referee? Because you get the best seat in the house. And like, man, like to be that close to that close to high quality rugby is like insane. So
Yeah, that's something I'm actually having to get used to, right? I said this before on the I think we were on a rugby FL's referee um I don't know how what you call it panel. I'll say panel just for
Yeah.
coolness. And that was one of the things that I realized immediately. Like I am really close to rugby. Like I am 2 feet away from the game. Like there,
Yeah, nice.
everything that's happening on the game. I'm at every breakdown. I'm at every scrum. I'm at every line out. Like I am in. It's the most pure part of the experience because you get to be so close to it without. It's danger, I guess. People might bump into you, but for in a sense, there's no real trouble, but you're in the middle of a rugby match. What was some intense moments you've had refereeing? You said D1A was a high level for life.
Yeah, yeah. So again, like
MLR must be crazy.
MLR was wild. Like the first game that I was a part of was rest in peace, the Toronto Arrows versus um, DC Old Glory. In at York Stadium in Toronto, and it was like I at that point I had gone to a bunch of scrimmages with rugby ATL at the time, just to kind of get used to the speed, kind of get used to some of the pictures around like especially scrum and line out to maul. Those are my big rocks always that I'm working on in 15s, and so, but it was still like yeah, it was wild like how fast play is and like the contacts and I think that was one of the jarring things in like the first 2 minutes of that game was like the real full on contact of like professional rugby is wild, man. It is wild. And MLR is a different level, but like you see the some of the news that came out about like that they've been using these high tech mouth guards in the Six Nations. That one of the Scotland players ended up gotten taken off for an HIA because his mouth guard recorded that like at least for a second or for something he experienced like 70 G's of like impact from like I don't know if he was tackling or if he was being tackled. But so they were like, nah, you you gotta get out of the game. So just like being close to that and um I think even like the fervor of like when teams are like knocking on the door to like score a try or like you can feel the momentum shifting to one team. Like you could like I think there's no other way to say that than just like you can actually feel it like on the back of your neck, like, oh, here we go, like something crazy is about to happen. And as a referee, like you want to be ahead of it in a sense, like you want to be prepared for whatever happens.
Yeah.
Um, high impact moments, high impact decisions. So yeah.
All right. So with no further ado, the point of this was to get Cisco in here and to maybe see a rookie in his Genesis learning a little bit. I've been coached amazingly by Tom Champa over the last month or so. He gave me a lot of pointers that I still make these little mistakes and I know it, but I'm in way better position to make calls. Uh, I plan on just running a game and maybe we just talk rugby. And when something interesting pops up, we have a conversation about it. But for the most part, this is tell me what you see, tell me what you think, and any tips that you can give me, I'll happily take them. So
Yeah, for sure.
let's move to it. So I'm gonna start the game off. This is the last game I refereed, which was this past weekend. It was U16s Tampa versus Key Biscayne, and it already started off like super duper duper confrontational, and that kind of shows itself as we'll see as the game kind of goes into it. But what was some of the first games you refereed?
Yeah, a lot of high school stuff. I mean, honestly, a lot of Key Biscayne Rats games. I'm not gonna lie. Um, Tampa didn't have a youth team when I was younger, but uh, yeah, a lot of youth stuff. Like I think I
Big
was
hit, big hit,
it
big hit,
yeah.
massive. And maybe it don't
Oh,
look
that's
that
the
crazy.
one that you posted. Yeah, yeah.
This is the
Oh,
reel I
but he
just posted.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was a
Yeah.
clear rap and he tried to rap,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it
he's
just
attempting to rep. Yeah, he just kinda misses him actually.
yeah, he kind of just clipped him with his arm, with his shoulder, with his arms going around. But
Yeah.
these rucks get real goofy. I mean, even there, the guy
Mm.
goes right to ground, and you know, this is the weird thing about these kids, right? He's laying on top of the ball, no real
Yeah, yeah.
body support, and you do got to take it back to the 5, right? They don't take the penalties.
Yeah, yeah.
We
Yeah, the
don't tap
penalties, you
penalties.
bring him out, yeah, no matter what. There is a
Okay.
law back in the day where, like, if it was a defensive penalty, so yeah, against them, you would only bring it out to the 5 if the penalty was in end goal, but if it was 2 meters from goal, then it would be the 2 meters from. Whereas now, and then before you couldn't obviously push the attacking penalty closer than 5. Now it is. The only thing that I would say about this one, Lance, in terms of sort of like what we were talking about very really briefly in the last right before we started the live. There's kind of like the right decision and like the correct decision, right? Or like the decision that the game needs. I think, and we talk about a lot of like refereeing contextually. So I think here actually what's interesting is I don't disagree with you that like that player is not supporting his body weight at all. Like he's fully turtled way past his own player on the ground. And obviously the picture that we're looking for is like that player's hands on their own on their teammate that's on the ground. The only thing is like none of those Tampa players are really trying to counter ruck or really trying to poach the ball. So I feel like on the goal line, especially, we're really looking for like really clear and obvious kind of penalties where you're denying the contest, you're denying like, yeah, fair contest for the ball, or the attack is getting extra advantage in terms of, maybe it's someone who double rolls on the ground. So like, they propel themselves, and now that defense has to take a half step or two steps back, or else they're offside, and then that obviously puts pressure on the defense. So I think I don't think you're wrong, but I think like this is one of those where I think you can keep it almost in the back of your head in the sense of like there's been an infringement here, but not a penalty is another way that I like to say that.
Okay.
And so then you can kind of talk to the kids afterwards and say, hey guys, make sure when you're on attack and you're getting momentum, you guys have to maintain your body weight. So you can like kind of move into a little bit of management, unless there's one that's like, you see, let's say like on the next pick and go, let's like hypothetical, pick and go left, and instead of scoring, guy gets tackled, someone's going to jackal, and then some guy just goes, another player goes sort of slips underneath, preventing the jackal from getting to the ball, then easy all day, right? Because then you've prevented that fair contest for the ball. So I don't disagree with this either. Like I think it's a really clear, really poor picture. And also sometimes when you're refereeing youth, they're not going to change their behavior unless you penalize, right? Like if you just say like, hey guys, keep it up, they'll probably keep on doing the same thing, and you'll have to like find the penalty that makes the most sense to you. Whereas if you ping them here, then also, which is also the first really poor picture probably that you've seen, then it also changes their behavior. Like, oh guys, that's right, we got to stay up on our feet.
Yeah. I just know that they were already fighting for the ball in the ruck before that. So once the kid
like
went
there's a
right
good
down,
contest there.
once the kid went down, so tackle's there, and then it was like nobody could even attempt. The guy was close, and it looked like he was gonna lean into it, but once the guy went all the way to the ground, it was like, oh yeah, that kills it. And you are right in a sense. Like I didn't have to necessarily blow it up that way immediately. But I don't know. This is what Tom basically is telling me is like, baseball is balls and strikes. You call it what you see. And in the game of rugby, you referee more or less contextually is the word that you give. And learning that difference, man, that's gonna take me for. It seems like that's what's gonna take me the longest because I know what I
well, but
see.
that's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing too. Is like I think like you've obviously got a lot of knowledge as a player. Like you've played at a high level, multiple national championships. Shout out. And so like the game really well. Now it's about how do you read the game from this new perspective. So from where you're stood there as a ref, like your responsibility there is again what, like, first of all, of course, safe play, especially at the youth level, safe play, but then fair play and fair contest. So when you start thinking about that, then like you can maybe pull it into like, again, thinking about like, oh well, I think then you start refereeing if, buts, and maybes, right? Of like, oh, but maybe someone was going to try and poach, and because they went off their feet, they didn't. But you kind of just have to try and find the pictures where it's like the easiest decision to see, because it's also just tough sometimes. Like when you think about it, then sometimes when I'm looking at review, I try, especially a decision like this, I'll try and see it from the perspective of both teams.
Yeah.
So I think like on the one hand, Tampa would be like, yeah, for sure, they're off their feet 100%. Like, whereas Key Biscayne's like, we're about to score. Like that did, like obviously we picked the ball up so quickly that like it probably didn't even matter that the guy went off his feet. And so then that's where like as a referee you try and figure out, and that's like your own philosophy, your own approach sometimes too, or whatever the competition. Sometimes when you're refereeing maybe more in D1A, especially like when you start going into the college realm as well as.
Hold on. I'll do a D1 AA game this weekend. I'm college
nice.
now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Which one is it? USF versus
St. Thomas.
Oh, nice. Yes. Oh, that'll be some good
Oh,
rugby
nice.
too.
Oh,
So
scary. Like,
that'll be a good game too. Of like, I think they'll give the sort of narrative, I want to say, of like a game like that might be something that you will read more with the experience that you have. Sometimes when you're doing like some of the youth level games, like you're kind of really concerned. Like at least for me, I remember being really concerned about safety first and foremost, and
yeah.
then from there it was about the fairness. And then sometimes I would have some decisions that were like, oh, that wasn't maybe the best, but I'll take it as long as I didn't miss any foul play. I didn't miss yellow carding somebody that I needed to, or admonishing a player that needed to like, hey, like keep your tackles way low, or like you got to try and wrap or stuff like that.
And shout out to Dustin for saying
Yeah.
congratulations for making it. Listen, this is scary times, okay, Dustin? These are scary times. I'm not I'm energized about, because it's the same level I played on, right? College level I
Hmm.
played on. So a part of me is like, hey, I made it. You know what I'm saying? But also, this is the first game of real consequence that I've ever refereed to, right?
Hmm.
These young dudes is putting quality of life on the line. It's different with youth. Coaching, refereeing 12-year-olds is really different than refereeing adults. They're all
Yeah.
legally adults. You know what I mean? And this is my first time refereeing grown up. So, I expect it to be fun at minimum.
Yeah, no, you should
Minimum.
definitely enjoy it. Like, I think just soak it up because, like, I think like you only get you only get firsts once, right? So,
Yeah.
first D1 AA game, like, make sure, like, especially before you blow the whistle, like, just take in the occasion, then start the game and go to work, kind of thing.
Taking the occasion, start the game, go to work. I like that. I'm gonna keep that in mind as
Yeah,
yeah.
man. No, people told me that from like one of the first stadiums that I got to referee in was the stadium that the CRCs were played in Philadelphia.
Yep,
And
yep.
like I remember, like I got to like it was literally they asked me if I wanted to referee a women's high school game, like a final, which was like in between the college games. This is when I was like super young. Like I wasn't even refereeing in the middle, for the like college stuff. And I remember them just saying like, "Hey, like just go out, have fun, and like enjoy refereeing in a stadium. Like it's super special." So yeah, I'll never forget that game. Like it. I mean, there are ways that I definitely forget the game in the sense of like it all went like a blur.
Yeah.
Um, but I love this positioning here that you've taken where like you shift to the right because you know they're gonna go wide. That's really good anticipation of like you manage the pillar post first. So right here, right. You're kind of asking them. You sort of asking them, making sure that the players get back, and you're already anticipating like, oh, they'll move the ball at least a couple of passes out wide. So you kind of start shifting out so that boom, you're right on top of the next one.
Shout
There to
out
referee this
Shout
concept.
out to Tom Champa. And
Yeah.
there's another thing too. I turned the audio off because they had me mic'd up and I talked the whole game. Like I'm all
Yeah. No.
listen, I am open communication ref. That is my deal, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no, it's a strong strength to have. Like it's a really
yeah.
important strength to have to be able to communicate to the players on the field.
But I'm also a banter ref as well. So
you
this
you are, and I respect it too. Like, man, there's times where like I feel like I took it too seriously too soon too, or like I never had that. Like I never had games where I was just like saying silly stuff or just being a part of like that kind of side of the game. Like it was always like I have to be really serious,
straightforward,
you know.
yeah.
And then now it's like, well, now I'm on TV, I can't say anything. So,
uh
I'm living through your banter. I want you to know that.
Shout out to Addy. I appreciate you. I am gonna do great. Thank you for that. But and also, but this is the first game that I wore actual boots in the game, right? So usually I'm wearing like
Whoa,
tennis shoes, right? It's the first game on grass. The
that's
rest of the
right.
game we're on like really,
Sure.
really goofy turf. I'm not
Yeah, the
wearing,
turf at Sequesta is kind of tough.
yeah, dude. I'm good. I'm good. I like my knees and
Bro,
Achilles where they good.
that turf was put in like when I was like had started going to college, not even. Like it's been a while since they put that turf in.
So I'm like, I'm good on wearing the shoes, and especially when it's kids. You know what I mean? I'll leave it alone when it's
Yeah.
kids playing. So you got tackle here. The player in white, the tackler impeded his ability to the Blues' ability to actually ruck the ball out. So I'm telling
Hmm.
the other guy in white, like, leave it, let it go, leave it. And he just kept fighting for it. Like, man, let the ball go. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
And then I don't get my signals right. This is another thing, right? I
Yeah.
do.
That's why for a second I was like holding on against the attack, against the defense. But yeah.
Hold on, hold
Yeah,
on, hold on,
yeah,
hold on. Let's clear this up now. I need clearance. I need clarity because I keep
yeah,
doing the same. So this is the ball carrier not letting go of the ball,
exactly.
and then this is the tackler not letting go of the ball carrier,
Yeah.
essentially, right? All right,
Yeah,
so
yeah. And
yeah,
we all have like our own little style. Like it's actually so funny too when you look at the refs on the series and stuff. And so I won't do this motion for like holding on because it looks so much like not releasing. So holding actually I just start like this and it's just like oh like you're holding on to the ball kind of thing.
yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
like not releasing, it's like oh really like ham up like
yeah,
not release, like
yeah,
almost like YMCA style.
yeah,
Um yeah, but like that's one of the other like real strong things that you need to have as a referee too, communication wise. Like you will lose, especially like sideline people, you will lose a lot of credibility if you're like penalizing the defense, but then saying holding on, or if they're like this guy's saying holding on, like you don't even know what he's talking about.
yeah.
So having your signals crisp as well as like just another little tick box of like, oh, you got that, and kind of like building rapport almost, and then people sort of like just trusting you that little bit more as well. So, but it's definitely hard, man. Like I think I was, it was I think about this a lot. Where like I actually took sign language when I was in high school, and what we were taught when we were doing sign language is like literally almost like this. Like you've got this like TV box that you're in, and all of the signs that you do have to be here. They can't be down here. They obviously can't be like over here. And like that just translated so quickly to refereeing for me. I'm like, oh yeah, like here's my TV, and like especially when you're like when you're refereeing sort of grassroots stuff, like you almost have to think about too, like how does the signal look to people behind me? So making sure that it's like up here too is
Yeah.
super important.
Wow.
So
Wow.
this is
Oh
like, but
goodness.
this is like where then it's like it's something that it sounds silly to overthink, but I think again it goes so far for people being like, man, this is like a crisp ref. Like this ref knows like what's up and like how to talk and how to show the signals and stuff like that.
I never even thought of it in that sense.
Yeah,
Goodness. Goodness. I don't even be worrying about what I just want the coaches and maybe a few fans that know what's going on to give me some,
yeah,
what I mean? But everybody else, like the players and the coaches. So, what I mean?
yeah.
You
Well,
like,
I
what
mean,
about
but
the
those are the main people that you're really talking to, right? So I think that like I think that's really important too to make sure like oh if the people that matter in the sense like are on the same page as you,
yeah.
then like you can't go wrong from there.
I think that box thing that you just said is actually something I'm gonna have to like actually focus on
Think
because
about yeah,
that's a
and
big one.
I'll say it, man. Like it sounds dorky, but genuinely, was that kicked out the back?
Yes.
Beautiful.
And then
So you gave him.
also
So
I
then,
get
what'd you do when it kicked out the back?
I gave it a scrum to white where the ball was kicked, where the mark was. Is that correct?
It's not entirely correct, but it is correct.
Hold on.
So when the
Hold on.
so he
Wait a
kicked
minute.
he kicked it out the hand, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So if he kicks it out of the hand and then it goes dead, what's so? uh Tell me more. Like, is there more, or is it just scrum where it was kicked from?
Scrum to white. So blue team kicked it
Yep,
unplayable off the hand right away. Right? They kicked it in and they kicked it out of play.
yep.
Unplayable. So it's a scrum to white at the spot of the mark. That is my
So
interpretation.
you
So is
got
it
half of it. You got half of it. If read the law book. So the
don't
teams
tell
will
me that.
actually have the teams will have options, right? So and that's always really important because teams have different strengths and different weaknesses, and it's up to them how they want to play. And so the options are scrum from where the ball was kicked, or a 22 dropout. I believe it's still 22 dropout if it's kicked from a penalty. I because I referee so much sevens, we don't do the five. We don't do the goal line dropout,
Mhm.
and the held up being a five, and the held up being a goal line dropout. So sometimes I get it confused. So actually, let me look at the law book right now.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. Look at the law book. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
definitely options though. It should be options, but keep playing while I'm looking.
All right, but that's the thing though, that like that scrum is the best option.
Well,
I make
usually, I mean, most teams, yeah, but like you'd want to still give the options
option,
just in
yeah,
case. Like maybe they've got a player who can like hoof it 22 to 22, and now they're on the other side of the field,
yeah.
right? Which in 15s is like that's money in the bank in goal. Okay.
Hold on,
Yeah, if a team kicks the ball, this is law 21:11. If a team kicks the ball through their opponent's goal, from the field of play into touch and goal or on or over the dead ball line, the defending team can choose A, to have a dropout anywhere on or behind the 22-meter line, or B, to have a scrum at the place where the ball was kicked. The only exceptions are an unsuccessful kick at goal or an attempted drop goal. In these cases, the defending team restarts with the 22-meter dropout every time. So no scrum
So
option.
it could have been a 22-meter dropout was a better option actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a way better
So, and that's
option.
why, but that's what I'm saying too. Like, you give the options not necessarily because you think one's better or worse, but it's so that you give the team the
No,
opportunity to decide
I
how they
did.
want to play with
I
the way.
didn't know, so
Well, yeah. That's step
we're
one.
dealing with.
Step one is like,
I just boned the whole thing. I just messed it up. Like that's you know what I mean.
no, it's
Yeah,
all. I mean, I think the players probably would have preferred scrum too, maybe, but yeah, you don't know unless it's
yeah,
asked, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Goodness, all right, that's a nugget I'm gonna take with me forever because there is no
Yeah.
way that I. Oh goodness gracious. So the scrums were pretty settled this whole time. They did a good
Yeah.
job of not doing too
Nice
much
and
in the
easy.
scrums. Everybody's on sides,
Yeah.
and then I got a high tackle here, and this
Yeah.
and this
Easy.
right,
Yeah.
and this is another thing, right? So I'm gonna let this sequence play after the high tackle, and I'm
Cool.
gonna let you know what the circumstances is. Like this is it's wild how I so high tackle, clear advantage.
Oh, yeah.
So I could have blew it up, but
Hmm.
I didn't. It wasn't enough to immediately throw the penalty because of the circumstance, the situation where they were, and this team get to run, and they already proved that they can just go
Yeah.
right.
And if you've ever read Key Biscayne, you'll know that, like, man, they're inside their 22. Like, they kind of want it. They would prefer to have a go
Yeah,
and then have kind of like the free play in their pocket.
yeah.
Oof, yeah. So then
So
I'm assuming you go back. Yeah.
so it's a knock on right, and I'm about to just go scrum down. It was almost like I forgot about the high tackle,
Oh
right?
my goodness. I was about to say I'm scared right now.
Hold on. I told that kid, like, listen, I know it was you. That's your last one. You high tackle again, I'm sitting you out. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It ain't no issue like that. I'm like, that high tackle back there is bad. I end up stopping the clock because the kid was down, right?
Hmm.
And then I'm like, well, it's a scrum here. And then one of the kids would keep it staying, like, what about that high tackle penalty? I'm like, advantage was played. And then I thought about it, was like, well, actually, no, advantage wasn't played. We going
Hmm.
back to this high tackle that happened, right?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh, it's great though. Yeah, it's great.
But
I mean, I think like not the best process, but I think so much in refereeing is oftentimes like, man, let's just get the right outcome though. Like, even if it's a little bit wonky, maybe a little bit embarrassing, like, you kind of got to admit to the players, like, oh, I kind of forgot about it, or I felt like. But if, like, you think about it and you genuinely also feel like, nah, you know what, there was neither tactical nor territorially advantage gained because they're inside they start this penalty advantage inside the 22. Yeah, they get one good run, then they kind of stay in that area, and then they knock the ball on. So it's sort of like, um, and the fact too that, like, that turnover comes from the kick, like, they're not really in. And I obviously know that, like, high school rugby, they don't really play with shapes, but they're not really like as organized as they would have been if, oh, they kick the touch, they have a line out kind of thing,
mhm,
right?
yeah.
So that's great. No, I love that, and I think again too, like, 100%. I feel like, especially at the grassroots level, but even sometimes at the high performance level, like, when you admit, like, oh yeah, you know what, yeah, like, I had it wrong, but we're gonna go to what's the right thing for the game.
Yeah.
Like, everybody respect. Like, even Tampa wouldn't really be. They would obviously be upset. So, like, oh, we're gonna still be under pressure. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you know that in the back of their minds, they're gonna be like, "Ah, it's tough to argue too that the advantage was over."
It was nothing to be said. Like once the kid was like, "What about the high tackle?" I'm like, "Advantage was played," and I was like, "Well, actually, advantage what?" You know what? I stopped everybody. Like, you know what? When time back on, we're going back to this high tackle penalty that happened back
Perfect.
here.
Yeah.
And
And one
I,
of the things that I want to commend you too for that is, like, I think refereeing is so, like, your brain is like working the entire time. And so when you can find those moments where, like, oh, players on the ground after, like, something that, like, maybe went a little weird or something you can probably give a little bit of extra thought to, like, you take that moment. I mean, obviously you check on the player, make sure that the player's, like, okay, or if they're getting the attention that they need. But at the same time, then you're also like, all right, like, you use that downtime to almost, like, rerun through all the stuff that's kind of, like,
yeah,
just happened. And it's like, oh, okay. Because you obviously want to be in the present moment, but you also want to make sure that you're still thinking about how things have gone, so you can try and figure out how things will go, and again, how to anticipate what might happen and stuff. And even
Absolutely.
like that, like right, like, ooh, what do I like? Was advantage over? No, okay, so we're actually gonna go for penalty.
So I have a question. Dustin Lavender, Tennessee Elite asks, Cisco, do you enjoy sevens or 15s more?
I feel like it's I feel like if you asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said sevens, but I think so much now is like they're just such different sports. Like I think that's actually the thing that is really shocking to me now. So when I go back and forth between like an MLR game and being on the series is like sevens is super exciting, physically demanding. Like we have to be so much more accurate and technical because it matters, right? Like there's like the reason why there's so many yellow cards in sevens is because so many things make that much of a difference because of all the space, because of fewer players. Um, but in 15s, like, there's a whole narrative of the game. There's like the will of two teams clashing into each other, trying to win out, whether it's differing styles of play or one team playing the same style better than the other. Um, I find 15s to be both like mentally exhausting, but also like mentally fascinating. Like when you get to like halfway, like when you get to halftime and you like are in that moment where you're like, okay, you know, how's the game looking? We look at all of our pillars of like space, breakdown, set piece, foul play, and then you start thinking about like, okay, what's the narrative of the game? Like, oh, is one team winning the kicking battle? Is one team really good on D? Is one team like really strong at set piece, really going to go for it probably in the second half before subs get put on at scrum? And then you go into the second half like with all of the tools in your toolbox, hoping that you've got everything to solve the problems that the game presents you with. And so, yeah, I feel like it's almost like it's just they're so different. I appreciate them so much more now. Um, if anything, the sevens wins out for me more for the places we go to and like the team environment. Like Lance was saying, like the referee team is like such a part of the sevens environment.
Yes, it
In
is.
15s, like we have our coaches, we have our team of referees, and we'll meet like maybe bi-weekly, sometimes once a week to talk to each other about like how we're doing. But for the most part, like it's pretty solo. And I'm obviously like a really social guy, and so I really enjoy being in the in the high pressure instances. And you go back into the locker room, and you can kind of talk to somebody about a certain clip, and it's just like so. Yeah, just a little bit more social. So I would say sevens if I had to, just more from the actual lived part of it.
Absolutely. That's an amazing answer because that is something I ask players, right? Would
Yeah,
you rather sevens or 15? And they usually give me an answer that leans into that, like war with my guys or a
yep,
full day of just running and rucking. You know what I mean? So yeah.
yeah.
Another thing that I had to learn, and this is something that I think comes from me not working lineouts as a player, is that
Hmm.
I don't have to rush lineouts. Like this game was the most time I ever took for lineouts. I was stopping them like, okay, how many y'all got? Full? All right, Tampa, they're going full. Match
Yeah,
numbers, please. This is my tunnel. Y'all good? All right, bet. And then instead of me being next to the hooker, I would put myself at the 15-meter line.
smart.
So from there, I can see whether it's straight. I also have a good eye for seeing whether or not, and I don't know that signal. Is it this? Is it
The
like windshield
skew,
wiper?
or yeah, the
Yeah,
not
yeah,
straight. I
yeah.
do it like if it's like a fin that's gone sideways for my head.
All right, I'm still in that. Or I do a really good job of knowing whether or not it went a full 5 meters on the throw in, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
you
know
can
how.
still judge that from the front, from the
Yeah,
back there.
and I thought I wouldn't be able to, but I actually called it pretty well this game. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
so, I'm patting myself on the biz act, but yeah,
yeah. I
this
will
game.
say too, like I think that like you taking your time works because this is a youth game and they're very much following your lead as like an adult on the field.
Hmm.
And I would say actually like just watch out with this the college game that you've got. Like they'll want to go their tempo. Like if it's a team that wants to go at tempo at set piece, it's how fast they want to go. So you kind of just like I think if and then that's where you have different tools in your toolbox, right? Like oh, if everyone takes their time, then you really want like I always think about set piece from a refereeing perspective. Like I want to put everybody in the places that they have to be and that they should be, so that then once everything starts going into motion, you already know what's going right, what's going wrong.
Yeah.
But if like teams are kind of like, going like, obviously they can't just run in and jump. They have to like, come in sets and then jump. But so if I know that teams are going to try and go fast, then my primary, the team that I'm most looking to like be in the spot that I need them to be is like the defense. So I'll go and I'll put the defense, I'll like stand where I need the defense to be. Like I'll have my foot and I'll be like, this is your gap. And then I'll take 2 steps back and I'll just stay in the front. If I know they're going fast, it's easier. And then from there, the attack will come in and they'll set their own gap. And if it's too big, then I'll blow my whistle. I'll say, no, you got to step in a little bit more. Or if they go in too far and they close their own gap, then it's like, no, you got to give yourself space too.
That's quite a nugget, actually. Thank you. that's
Yeah.
a good one, actually. Because I didn't play as a forward. I spent my time.
Yeah.
So malls are something different too, right? This is the thing, right? The mall happens at this point, right about here. They left this pretty much line out over. I felt like they moved past where white was, so the arm goes down, defense can approach. That to me is like super new, because anytime there's ever been a line out in my life, I'm on the other side of the field. I don't have no involvement in it, so kind of getting that.
And if anything, you're looking at the space that you're trying to work with.
Yeah, so I'm and another thing is with the mall detached like this, it don't even seem like it's a mall anymore. There's nobody touching anybody. So it's like mall is over. Yeah, the mall is over. You know what I mean? And it's that part of it. So now it's just a rug. And learning that kind of process is just.
Yeah, if they clearly detach, like if they peel off is the phrase the law book uses. If they peel off and then they get tackled, that's just a tackle. But if they sort of like roll the mall, and especially the triggers, like if you have a defender from the original mall, then it's the same mall, or it's still a mall, and so you have to referee it like a mall.
And that part of it is like what really,
and that's just repetitions. Like that's just getting the muscle memory that you can get, but just you only learn by seeing more. And I'm gonna tell you, Lance, like that's refereeing. Like that's me. Like I'm still doing that. Like I will literally, like when I'm getting ready to referee like an MLR game, I'll like just go into the last 2 weeks that both teams have done, and like I'll have one day that I do just every scrum, every single scrum, so I can see like what pictures they normally give, what sorts of plans of attack that they have in terms of when they want to have a go or whatever, and then line up them all the same of like, where do they jump? Do they jump at the front? How do they form? Do they turn? Do they try and go out? And so it's just like having, and then so those pictures are both the specific things that I might see in the game, but it's also, I'm just saying, like I'm trying to link the fact that like all you need is reps, but you're only ever also going to keep needing reps. Like you're never going to be like, oh, I hit, max reps, I
figured it out. Yeah, I figured it out.
It's gonna be like, it's always gonna be, you always, especially if like you're going up the next levels and stuff, like you'll always need more pictures, more repetitions in game, in practices, even just like watching rugby and closing your eyes and visualizing situations.
Well, I don't have any plans to be refereeing anything super high. It was a part of the reason that I continue to do it.
I have plans for you. I will tell you right now, but
the part of the reason I continue to do it is because the shortage of referees. Now it's like out of obligation, partially. You know what I mean? Like they don't pay enough to where it's like I can spend my Saturdays just hanging with my lady or doing something else. Be perfectly fine. But the fact that I know, like, if I don't referee, it's a chance that it might stretch out the actual referee association. I'm like, all right, you got to raise your hand and, who needs help kind of thing. But I'm thinking about like, I was thinking like, I only want to do youth games. That's what I thought.
yeah. But then as soon as you're refereeing and there's short of a ref, they're like, well, do you want to do a college game?
No, they didn't ask me. It wasn't no accent. It was
voluntold. You get voluntold a lot.
Voluntold, yeah. You can say no, Lance. Oh, can I? I? Oh, I guess you can. Voluntold. Yeah. So this is a pretty unique one because first of all, this kid in the blue on the left is upset because I told him he was offside. I'm glad he stopped. But from here, this kid comes right through the side.
Yeah.
Right from the side. And it seemed like an easy decision to make, but as the more I look at it, I'm like, I could have let it play on. First kid through the gate, and immediately the guy from the side just clears him out.
Yeah.
awkwardly.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
certain things I'll
Or
be
if
like,
anything too, if anything too, like I think, and again, like more from maybe a coaching type perspective or like a ref coach perspective. My only thing then now, especially about the first penalty that we saw for off feet against Key Biscayne on the 5, is that this counter ruck kind of has a similar picture where it's a player from Key Biscayne who goes on his hands, and that's how he wins that space. And he beats the player who has that side entry. And for that reason, honestly, it's like, and two wrongs never make a right, right? But it's sort of like, oh, this is all kind of like we mulligan this, and we can play on. But like having I think my only thing is seeing you penalize the off feet on the goal line. I was almost expecting you to penalize that for off feet
what?
against Key Biscayne.
Well, he didn't really go down or hit the ground till the other
Exactly.
kid contacted him. So he got hit from the
Fair
side,
enough.
and that's when he started going down to the ground. At least that's what it looked
That's fair
at
enough.
the moment.
That's fair
And
enough.
it,
But again, even to your point though, too, I think the right outcome probably would have been just play on.
like I
Yeah.
don't.
Which is honestly, that's also the crazy thing sometimes about refereeing 15s is like you actually get thrown so many of those situations where it's like no one's really done anything wrong, illegal, or unfair. What a catch! Wow.
Oh, and that knock on
Uh,
going right to his hands.
yeah, right to him. I feel like you only see this in high school where it's like people are just accidentally in the right place at the right time.
Ref, like
Yeah,
what?
great. Yeah, and then you're
Don't
just
complain
playing
to
like
me.
a nice patient scrum advantage penalty, scrum advantage here inside the 22. Like that's great. Nice and patient. Like Tampa. I mean, I guess maybe they want to try and run it out. I don't know if they can kick, but yeah, always under pressure. Yeah, really good. I think again, like that's also great. Where like when you have that type of patience to let the players dictate the game, ah, like that's a great place to start your refereeing philosophy from, right? Of like, um, that if the game really feels like it's being decided by the players and sort of like the way that the narrative, especially 15 plays out, is being decided by the players, and that you only intervene when it's like, oh, something's illegal, something's unsafe, something's unfair. That's all you're there for. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're getting your steps in, and then you are participating in some good banter
and
on my behalf.
and this is the beautiful part too. This mark is all off. I don't know where in the world the tackle happened on the goal line somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It
yeah. It's
happened
like just on the
inside the
5 meter.
5, right? And
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure,
yeah.
okay,
Let's
right
see.
outside the 5,
Yeah,
maybe
just
7
right on the
meters.
like pretty much like a step behind that like intersection.
And
And
look
then
where
where do you
we
put
at,
it? Oh, like a full
like the
like a
15.
full 5 meters. Oh, that's okay.
Oh
That's
man.
definitely a skill though. Like that's a weird proprioceptive part too of refereeing when you play advantage to remember like where we were on the field when something happened because
Oh my
players will
goodness.
remember because like they have their spots, right? So they're like, oh, right there, where I was. Um, but then you as a ref, like you're trying to just get out of the way or get to where the ball is, and it's like where were we? I get it wrong all the time too. To be fair, like I'll have penalties be too far infield. I'll have scrums be further back, further up, and I think like um, you don't always have to be perfect, but as long as you're like within like a couple of meters, like that's maybe like on the threshold of like maybe not great, but not
Yeah,
bad.
I don't lose sleep over it, but it's actually
Yeah,
funny. Like to me,
yeah.
I don't know.
That's what's great about again, like the fact that you've already. Oh my goodness, the fact that this is great. This is such a crazy game.
It's,
The fact
yeah,
that you've already seen the clips and stuff is like so good too. That you have that interest as well, not just saying like, oh, I want to referee so that I can give back and almost like the responsibility that you have as a member of the rugby community. But also the fact that you're doing your due diligence of like of even like having that awareness of like, oh wow, that mark was not, and that you're not losing sleep over it, which is great. You should never lose sleep over something like that. But that you at least like on the back of your head, next time you play advantage, you'll probably be like, where are we?
yeah. I know a little bit better to hold on to. Like, yeah. It's come to find out it's super important. That little
Yeah,
stuff actually matters. But yeah, this game get pretty. It get goofy before it get good. So I
yeah.
like.
I feel like that's always high school. They kind of like just gotta like let like 15, sometimes 20 minutes of steam out, like all of the jitters of like playing rugby and everything. Um, oh well.
They just the Tampa team
Just
structure
hands.
was it just wasn't it just wasn't built
Yeah,
to yeah.
they've stayed stuck here for the last whatever it is like.
They're gonna be here the whole game. This is the whole
Yeah,
game. The whole
yeah.
game is on this side of
Which
the field.
then again, Lance, like then look back, and this is not to say like, oh, you did this wrong, but then again, like the difference between the scrum from the kick
And
that was
that
straight out to the
22
22,
is
they
a
would at
big
least be
deal.
playing in the middle of the field instead of like, oh my god, we're gonna get scored on inevitably. Uh,
But yeah, the one thing I learned in this game, that guy died right on top of it.
for sure. Yeah.
And the one thing I learned in this game is that like voice your presence. Like how do you
Hmm.
use your voice? How close do you need to stand for it to work? Like,
Yeah.
Tom was telling me how he used to stand close to the ruck in order to be able to speak to the game and let it be. And I realize I do the same thing, and I need to. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild. This wild stuff is happening. Wild
Oh,
stuff was happening this game. I'm telling you, man, it was ridiculous.
this guy watched Dupont. This scrum half watched Dupont play the night before this game for sure. He was like cross kick, cross box kick to the wing to score. Like
In
what?
traffic, it wasn't like the guy was
That's
open.
so good.
Both of them missed the ball and it bounced perfectly where it needed. But I think this where the yellow card happened, and
Oh, okay, okay. I don't think I've seen it yet, or maybe you posted it in it. Oh,
yeah, I posted it.
oh, the tackle off. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
This was a great yellow card too.
I guess it don't happen just yet.
And
But
by that we never mean we. It's so funny. I always wonder how people who are not referees think when we say stuff like that. But like a great yellow card is just like the way you gave it. Great, like straightforward communication. Everybody agrees it's a yellow, so it's like a really strong yellow.
yeah,
Versus like like talking to the AR or taking like when you take too much time for foul play stuff, it's clear like that. Again, those are moments where people are like, "Does this ref know what's going on?" Or it's not necessarily that you're doing things wrong, but you buy so much rapport from everybody when you're just boom, boom, decisive, especially with foul play.
yeah. And
Decisive and correct, right? You got to be correct as well, but when
decisive
you're
and
decisive
correct.
with foul,
Yeah, it was the easy decision to make though. Like it was clear.
yeah.
It was clearly
Oh,
something
beautiful
wrong.
positioning, Lance.
You think so?
Beautiful. Yeah, well, that's also why you get in line to see this tackle. You identify nice and early, and again, never having played scrum half, like I think you identify nice and early, like you're on the open side, and they're going to keep going left. So, but like as the ball is getting passed out, you're already transitioning across to where the ball is going to go.
It
Awesome.
was it was funny as the conversation was like
It's
I was
so
like
good.
I was like, you gotta rap you gotta rap when you tackle. He's like, I was trying to rap. I'm like, no, you shoulder checked him. And I was mad about it. Like
I love that you said this too.
I was angry about it. Like that was so bad. Like it brought me back to my yesteryears and when I was young, getting shoulder checked in games and nobody got a penalty or a card or anything, right? Because
Yeah,
that guy's a rookie. Like, oh, let it happen. Like, being, it is what it is. But it literally pissed me off, right? Because it would have just been a knock on. If he don't
yeah,
touch the kid, y'all get the ball. Like, why even? Oh my goodness. Oh
yeah,
my goodness. And they referees didn't care. They didn't argue. They didn't. They knew what it was, man. But yeah, it
yeah.
was just like, sorry, fam. And that kid can play. That's the thing that upset me the most. Like he the
Exactly.
one who made the tackle that the knock on the kid caught. Like he was playing phenomenal
Work.
ball up
Yeah,
into that point, right? And then it's like, oh goodness.
yeah.
And nobody complained, nobody said nothing. I'm glad the kid that got hit because he was mad. I'm glad he didn't get up ready
Hmm.
to fight because he was upset already, and you know what I mean? Like he was looking like, come on, man, like what you gonna do about it? I wasn't even looking at him. It's
Yeah.
funny. I'm just now like seeing him
Yeah,
his
yeah,
reaction.
yeah. But
I
that's
didn't even
also
look at
again
him.
like that's another element too that's so good when you're decisive about foul play as well. Once the players know like, oh, he's gonna sort this out, you won't have a player try and take stuff into their own hands, which then you also have to deal with. If you just like boom, right on top of it, hey, come here. Oh, he's already talking to him, like he's probably gonna give him a yellow, or if not, like they're gonna be on a warning for like foul play, maybe. Um, is like what would go through a player's mind. Like again, that just it helps diffuse so many situations too when you're just like boom, yellow, get him.
Sorry, Scott. I didn't see your message. He said only Key Biscayne. Amazing kick from these kids.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
they grow up kicking soccer balls and stuff, so they're
yeah. They get
naturals, man. It's crazy to see,
they get right to it. Yeah, they get right
and
to it.
it's awesome to see them too over the years. Like when I started refereeing them, to be fair too, I think they were. maybe mostly like under 12, under 14s. So like they didn't start playing under 19 until I left Florida, I think, or maybe just before. So it's awesome to see like them have like an under 19s team, and then obviously Marcos Young. Like literally, it's so crazy that he's playing for the Sharks now, because I like literally remember him being tiny, like a tiny kid, yelling at me out on Key Biscayne Park about something random or whatever, in Spanish and English, like whatever. And I was like, all right. And then I said, like, and then I forgot we went to college, but then when I saw him playing for DC, I was like, wait a second, I know this face, just younger.
That's wild. And it's the last thing I'm pretty proud of. This is like one of my prouder moments. The game get shaky after this. A lot of things happen. Players on Tampa get hurt. So once the game got out of hand, Key Biscayne start lending them players and things like that happen. So but this is the last bit where I was like, all right, I did my good share. Right. Let's see if you can.
Oh, and that's a smart advantage, because then they peel off the back, and you're still playing advantage, right? You're not calling another advantage.
No, I'm still playing advantage.
Cool. That's perfect.
It's still the first advantage, and now I try.
Great.
So
yeah.
If you look into the deepness of this scrum, you will see a leg getting pulled on.
Yeah.
Yep. And that knocked the whole maul down. So that was like, all right. Let me go ahead and you know, Key Biscayne was so much on the front foot, it was no point in stopping play.
100%. And my one coaching question then that I'll give you from that specific clip is, when do you think then around, because I think it's really fair to play the advantage there, and it works out in the context of the game that then Key Biscayne scores. But what would be your triggers for something worse happening, a try still gets scored, and then like you maybe have to come back and still give a yellow for a collapsed maul? Like what's your trigger for, this collapsed maul is no longer just a penalty, but we've reached yellow card threshold?
Probably how the maul got stopped. Like if it was somebody grabbing around the neck or head area, that would be something that I would yellow. I think it's dangerous to pull down a maul in general, but I think it depends on the circumstances. That was one of those, like, you know, they were getting pushed back and they knew they were going to give up a try eventually, so they pulled it down. It didn't ring to where it was a danger level to where I'm like, all right, somebody got to get some cheese. And also it was tough to see who did it, right, in the middle of all that.
That's always the one.
I'm just going to give it to the captain. That'd be crazy.
Yeah,
I think it will lend itself to how it was pulled down and then what happened afterwards. Because like if a maul falls, you don't have to get away from it. So if guys start piling on it, jumping on, then I'm like, all right, it's time for some cards, because they killed the ball like they're supposed to, but essentially it's a danger thing at that point. The maul didn't fall or change on its own like it's supposed to. It was pulled, and then it add danger if people fall on top of it. I just think if somebody around the head or
there's one thing that I want you to think about, but we'll go to another thought that'll, I think, maybe get you there, of something that I want you to think about. So what's one situation? What's like the classic, like what are all the tick boxes that you need for like penalty try maul, or like collapse maul, and then you're giving penalty try yellow card? Like what are some of the like real big triggers for that situation?
Well, penalty try has to do with inside the 5 or near the 5 meter line.
Yeah, so near the goal line. Yeah.
So stopping pretty much impending try. Trigger points would probably be for a maul. Wow. It had to be something egregious, like going around it clean and not going through it. I don't know. You had to. Yeah, that would be the only.
No, it's okay. No, it's super good. No, so like the real strong triggers that like we always look for with collapse mauls that near the goal line that turn into penalty try yellow cards is, so a penalty try, right? Like there's a very specific definition in law that needs to be fulfilled with what you're seeing on the field. It's an active foul play which prevents a probable try from being scored. So not possible, not like the wording probable is very important in how we interpret them. And so our triggers are obviously like, near the goal line, impending. And I think what fulfills those kinds of like, what's an impending maul try is like moving obviously, like, they've got the team with the ball has dominance. They're moving with speed to the line, and then somebody pulls it down before it gets to the line. Once it's already like, oh, this is definitely going to go in, right? Then they pull it down, and then that prevents the probable try from being scored. So the main things are um, the obviously the collapse, but then as well as the collapse in the goal line, as well as moving with speed. So I think that would be one thing to think about, or not to think about, but one thing to have in the back of your mind when these malls are a bit further out, where you're probably not going to think about a penalty try situation. But, and to your point around like all collapse malls are a little dangerous, they're more dangerous when they're going at speed. And not only they're dangerous, they're also cynical, right? And so
Mhm.
then the cynical offense is also what then kind of reaches the yellow card threshold.
Yeah.
So I think like that's perfect because like the mall gets formed, they're kind of moving forward, but they're not like clattering quite yet, right? Like I think they might have been able to get there, and almost in a way, Tampa plays it right where they collapse it before it's like, oh, we're now this is going to be without a doubt or clearly and obviously cynical. So that's why kind of they could probably get away with the penalty, and then maybe if it happens again, then a warning. But if you had a situation same like that, and it starts moving and then it goes down, but we're not near the goal line, you can still play advantage and see. And if they score, you've played advantage off the yellow card penalty. So obviously the penalty advantage is done, but you still got to give the yellow card after the fact.
And then it's finding out who to get a yellow card too, because that's a really
Yeah, which
tough part
is
of it. That
yeah,
and
which
yeah. Go ahead. What you
no,
saying?
I was gonna say which then might paint as well in terms of if you don't have ARs, for example, like when we work as a team of three for MLR, like that's like usually that collapse when that collapse happens, the person that can see that the easiest is the AR because the ref's sort of like behind it and or in like the ref is on the ball side, but the collapse happens kind of from the other
The other
side.
side, yeah.
And so the if an AR can kind of get a little bit behind, they can see it better, like the number, and especially like as play goes on, the AR can sort of like stay posted up there and like just watch for who was it like, and we'll genuinely we'll see like if we can tell like, oh, it's the person with the yellow boots that collapsed them, we just need a number. They'll just hang around until they see what that number is. But what I was going to say is if you don't have that personnel stuff, then that's why you might go into I'm going to penalize and give this yellow right away so
Just
I can give it
blow it
to this
up so I
person.
can just wait for him to pop out and then go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because again, what's the most fair and what's the best outcome in that situation? That the play, like the advantage is only good. It was only good if a try gets scored, right? And then that's a real hopeful advantage, which is you don't want to get in too much of the habit of doing those. But the best outcome is if someone has committed a cynical offense, that their team bears the consequence of that,
Mhm.
right? That's what's fair in that
Yeah.
situation. And so
Yeah.
making sure that you dot that I and cross that T first um, is would be important, right? So
Dot that
just
I
things
and
to think
cross
about.
that T. Yeah. 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 That's actually that's wild. Cause
Yeah,
this kind of mall, like I said, lineouts, mall scrums. I am on my infancy in that. I literally have a doctorate level of rugby, like history, rules, old rules, all the stuff for the
yeah,
last 16 years I've been a part of, right? 17 years I've been a part of. But scrums, malls, lineouts, I'm still in junior high. I'm still
yeah,
in middle
yeah.
school
Like
with.
I
So
know what they look and sound like, but I haven't
I
seen too many in the wild. I've been to the
I
zoo. I've been to the zoo, but I have not gone on the safari yet.
and that's what this is now. I'm literally on a safari, man. We reached the hour, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We've been just talking rugby. We got to do this
Easy,
again, of
man.
course. We
Easy
got to
for
do this
sure. No,
again.
I'm always more than happy to talk refereeing, talk your refereeing, referee philosophy stuff. Like, um, again, I think it's so cool. Like the whistleblowers documentary that's come out with Rugby Pass TV. Like, just giving folks. I think a lot of folks don't think about what goes on when you referee. And I mean, obviously, that documentary has much more to do with the kind of like emotional side of things, which is super fair and important to know about. But I think as well, even like approaches of refereeing and stuff, and that even people be like, "Oh, that's not that complicated. Let me go out and try refereeing and stuff." Which, like you're saying, especially in Florida, but I mean throughout the U.S. too, we got a shortage of referees. So I'm always more than happy to try and you know get folks to come into a ref tent someday soon. So if this
Yeah.
helps, then sweet.
And the coolest part of it is now when I actually go to, because Great American Rugby is going to tournaments all over, and I'm traveling. it's nice now to be able to have this perspective where I can give referees a bit of grace because they always been a other to me. No
Mm-hmm.
referee has been my friend. You're just a guy that blow a whistle and stop me from scoring tries for some reason, right? And now to actually have a little bit of empathy and understanding of their place, and this is one of the reasons, right? Rugby Town, greatness. It was great hanging out with you guys, and then Freetail. I hung out
Oh
with,
yeah, that's right.
yeah, I went to Freetail this past year, and Tom invited me over to the referee house, and Kat was there, and all these referees that I've been seeing for a while now. And the next day, in the final, a call happened, and Justin Hale was refereeing the final for the men's Freetail, and I didn't get to see it because I was body blocked, but the entire Nav sideline gets just erupts. They're upset. They're so mad. Oh, that's a yellow card. That's a yellow. They're upset. It was basically intentional knock, is what they were saying, right? They were
Mm,
so mad, so mad. And I'm like, oh, Hale missed the call. It happens, maybe, right? When
yeah.
you look back at it, Hale just gave it a penalty, or excuse me, gave it a regular knock on and just went on
Mm-hmm.
by this day. When you look at the film, the guy was trying to intercept a pass and he had two hands. He just dropped it. So it wasn't like he was
Mm,
knocking the ball down, trying to stop play with one hand. He had an interception. He just didn't
yeah.
happen to catch
It
it.
wasn't good enough on the day. Yeah.
Right. Just at the moment. So it really wasn't a yellow card or a penalty. It
Mm-hmm.
was it was literally just a regular knock on, right? And Hale was
Exactly.
so strong with it, like, no, that's just a regular penalty. Y'all be quiet over there. But they were so mad, like he's blowing the game for us. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
on their side. I'm next to him, like, oh, he blowing the game for him. You know what I'm saying? Until I seen it later and was like, you know what? There's something to this referee thing.
Yeah.
There's something to it.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had already took my class or whatever. So once it came up, like, yeah, you want to get some games? I was like, come on, let's do it. And that that
Awesome.
that
That's
little
great.
bit of
Yeah, man.
stuff is what like really drove me to do it. And obviously, having a conversation with you and your pops being my sensei, stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. So I do appreciate you stopping by and giving, just talking some, but in great American rugby tradition, we must give thanks and gratitude to someone who helped us on our rugby journey. So could you please, and maybe for, the second, third time, I'm asking you, please thank someone who helped you on your rugby referee journey, Cisco.
Oh, I feel like so. I definitely thanked my dad before, right? Can you like we can confirm that because I'm
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I definitely think like somebody like actually genuinely um real cool guy, Peter Watson from Boston, legendary referee coach, like has been involved in rugby in that area as well as in throughout the US for like so many years, really tragically passed away right before the new year. We're really all kind of like shook up and still sad about it. I know a lot of people in the New England Referee Society um, you know, couldn't believe it. Like, and definitely, he was just inducted into the USA Rugby Foundation Hall of Fame. He's just given so much to the game. Like, I remember I said it. I made a post about it, but I'll say it here too. Like, the first ARP game that I had was Boston RFC versus Boston Wolfhounds in Boston. I flew up. He picked me up. He didn't have to. He was watching my game. Um, I was 17. I think I was probably like 19 actually at this time, um, maybe 20. And, I hadn't really met him before, but I kind of heard about him. And, that game was tough, man. It was my first ARP game, like a whole different level, like so much to chew on in the game. And I think like I came off the field kind of knowing like that was not my best performance. And, Peter gave me like, the best, all of the grace and compassion and all of the analysis as well. Like he was able to see me there as like the person that I was, and like he was there for me in that capacity. But he was also there for me as a ref coach, as a somebody who saw the potential in me, and that was like just that was such a core memory for me from those early days in refereeing, and again being able to travel, being involved in like higher level refereeing, higher level rugby, like I was saying at the beginning of the podcast. But so rest in peace. Like again, like we're just big hole in the referee community now. So we're just gonna try and do our best to do stuff in his memory, like do our best. So
Cisco, as always, man. I greatly appreciate it. You stopping by, you adding your bits and pieces to this. Thank you so much for being part of the Great American Rugby story and helping me in my referee journey. We're going to do this again really soon.
Please, yeah, 100%.
And next time I'll have Amanda on and I'll ask her questions about you. And we'll
She'll have plenty of answers.
and yeah, it's gonna be a blessed time. But thank you so much, Cisco Lopez. Everyone, Cisco Lopez, Sevens international referee, MLR referee, and one of the greatest Florida referees to ever exist and live. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope to have you on soon again, brother.
No, for sure. Always. Thank you so much.
You be good, man. Wow. Cisco Lopez, 1 hour and 10 minutes. This is a lie. Shout out to everybody who tuned in, all 9 of you. I don't care how many it is. We're going to do these anyway. I don't care. I was talking to the void forever. Rugby is life. Life is great. My name is Lance. Thank everybody for tuning in. I hope to talk to you all soon. Live in gratitude.